Hey everybody. So my name is Jenny or Genevieve Campbell, and I am ready to present to you my presentation that I gave at the Brightest in Utah conference about surrender, complete surrender, how to come all the way in and sit all the way down. Get off the diet roller coaster for good. This is just my story that I'm going to share with you. Just sort of my bright line eating journey and how, I lost a bunch of weight and did it my way. And it worked, but then I really struggled during the maintenance part and gained back some weight and landed in what we call the ditch. And it wasn't until I surrendered and really came all the way in and sat all the way down that I was able to really live this life free from sugar cravings and addiction. So I'm excited to share this with you. Before we officially start, I would like to just center myself. This is what I like to do. If any of you ever listen to accountability calls with Lynn Colston, she's one of the Bright Line Eating coaches. She likes to do this, just a little centering exercise. And it just helps me as well to get my mind ready. So if you guys wouldn't mind joining me or just kind of listening for a minute while I get myself ready. And all I'm going to do is just some deep breathing, some what we call box breathing. So I'm going to breathe in for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and hold it for 4 counts. And I'm going to do that 3 times. So are you ready? You can kind of watch my hands as I'm counting here. So breathe in and hold and out and then in again, hold, out, last time in, hold, out. Okay, that just helps me to bring myself present and be ready to talk to you guys. This part that says how to come all the way in and sit all the way down, just so you know, that is something that Susan Pierce Thompson has said. The one time I've heard her say it, and she's probably said it more, but was in the Rezoom course, Reboot Rezoom. And really, like, when I think about that, I imagine, a chair or, something where somebody's invited me and maybe I'm a little shy and don't really want to be there and I don't really put myself all the way there. But when I do finally come all the way in and sit all the way down, then I'm actually a part of the experience. And, when we do that with Bright Line Eating, that's when we really see results. So, okay, here we go. Going to the next slide. All right, so I just want to introduce myself. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard of me and heard my story, but this is me with my favorite people. This is my family. I have 5 children, and I do live right here in Utah in North Salt Lake City. My kids are older, like not super old. I'm not yet a grandma or anything like that, but my oldest is 21. It's this beautiful one here. And then I have a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old. So I have 3 adult children now. And then this guy here is 16 and this guy's 13. And my husband, Brock, he was on the panel for the Utah's Brightest conference, or the Brightest in Utah conference. So if you listen to the panel, you probably saw him. He was representing a man's perspective of Bright Line Eating, and he has sort of been in and out of this journey with me, but lately it does seem that he is very surrendered and doing really well in the program. But overall, he's just my best friend and my biggest support. I am a teacher. I'm actually kind of still what I would call a teacher in training, but I did work this last year as music teacher for elementary students, kindergarten through 6th grade at our local elementary. And I will be doing that again this coming school year, but I'm also earning my teaching license. I don't actually have my teaching license yet, so I'm earning that and my master's degree at the same time. And fall of 2023, I should have my own classroom. But I really do have a wonderful passion for teaching elementary age students. It just brings me a lot of joy. Okay, so here is me and my husband. Aren't we cute? Back in 2017. This is right before I started Bright Lane Eating, about, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks before. This was September of 2017. As you can tell, we are Boston Red Sox fans. Him more so than me, but I am a fan of the Red Sox because I am a fan of him. And so that's just something fun that we like to do together, is go to games. And back in 2017, that is the year that we both turned 40. And to celebrate our birthdays that year, we decided to go to Boston and watch the Red Sox play there at Fenway. And it was just a wonderful vacation. But shortly before that, I had ordered the Bright Lane Eating book. I had, heard about it through a couple of different people, and I decided to read it. And it was during that trip where I really, really read it. I finished it, and it changed my life. It helped me understand why I was unable to stick with any other diet beforehand. I really related to the addiction piece that Susan talks about in the book, and was understanding why I was unable to stick with other, weight loss programs. It was because my brain was holding me back. My brain, was addicted to the dopamine hit it was getting from sugar and flour. And anyway, so during that vacation, we rented a car. We traveled all around New England, and just, it was a wonderful trip. And while we were traveling, I would read the book. And anyway, at one point we went to Salem, Massachusetts, and there was this cute little dress shop there. And I found this dress. Oh my gosh, I should have brought this in here while I was doing while I'm recording this, the dress, but oh well, I don't have it as a visual aid. But I bought a dress at this store in Salem, and it wasn't expensive. It was a $35 dress. But I bought it in a size 10. Now, during this trip, I was wearing a size 24. I remember going into, the shops there in Boston and at Fenway Park, wanting to buy things for myself, and really being limited to, oh, I guess we'll get the biggest thing here. That's the only thing that fits me. And that was so, frustrating for me, and embarrassing and devastating. And I even remember sitting in the stadium seats there at Fenway, and my hips and thighs were just barely fitting into the seat, and just feeling so uncomfortable and embarrassed. But I was reading this book and feeling a little bit of hope that maybe Bright Lane Eating was the answer. And so when we were in Salem and I found this dress, I decided to buy the dress in a size 10. And I told my husband that it would be my goal dress, and that if I didn't fit into it in a year, or if it wasn't as if I was going to, meaning I wasn't really, trying anything to lose weight or take care of myself, then I was just going to give that dress to somebody else, and I was going to move on and just accept the fact that I was an obese person. But a year later, in October of 2018, I tried that dress on. It did not yet fit me, but I was getting close, and by December of that year it did fit me, and now it is too big for me. Now I am a size 4, and I've been living in a size 4 for mostly the last 3 years, but that's part of this story as well. So I initially lost 145 pounds. I started my Bright Lane Eating journey on October 9th, 2017, and exactly 18 months later, on April 9th, 2019, I started maintenance. But when maintenance happened, it wasn't just because of maintenance. It was truly that I was still holding on to some behaviors throughout my weight loss journey that when I got to maintenance, it was easy for my addict brain to justify letting certain things in. And I gained back 40 pounds, and I was really afraid that I was going to keep gaining back the weight. And so then I did resume completely, and I surrendered completely on January 1st, 2021, and I have not looked back since. So this is my story of surrender and resume. And I just want to share this with you in hopes that maybe it can help some of you who have found yourself in a similar situation to know that there is hope. And when you completely resume, you can be free. I mean, completely surrender. So this is us last September of 2021, so 4 years after that other picture was taken. Aren't we cute? Older and wiser. So yeah, down 150 pounds actually from the previous picture for me. My husband's lived Bright Line eating off and on, but so I can't really say that what he is down, but for me, 150 pounds. And I love this part. I wrote this. I have learned that life is simply better when I am not into the food. And I put that there because that first trip to Boston, not only was I uncomfortable, I just remember feeling so uncomfortable in many ways. But I also remember just being so into the food during that trip, just feeling like everything, you know, like I didn't want to miss anything. So I would see a certain food and, you know, have to try this or that and go out of my way to find this whatever food. And I felt like for whatever reason that was enhancing the experience of the vacation. And also, you know, I'm sure many of you have been here. I knew that I was going to come home and try Bright Line eating. So it was sort of like saying goodbye to whatever foods as well. But funny thing, when we went back 4 years later and I was living a bright life and really living a surrendered life, there, eating off plan, breaking my bright lines during that trip was not even an option to me in my head. And while both vacations were really amazing and wonderful, the second time was so much better. Physically, I felt better and I was able, you know, I had the stamina to walk around the streets of Boston, and I remember that I could fit in those stadium seats and it was no problem. But also I just wasn't into the food. I was into the experience, and I did not feel bad that I wasn't partaking of all the things that I could smell around me or the things that I noticed other people eating. Honestly, I didn't even notice it that time so much. I was into just the wonderful time that I was having with my husband. And, you know, a lot of times we think the food makes life better, but it doesn't. So this next thing is really one of my favorite quotes regarding addiction. I have seen this quote kind of floating around Facebook in different sort of recovery programs. This could apply to any addiction, but it is so true, you guys. I don't know who said this, but isn't it true? Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. We literally are doing that. We're giving up our whole life for food, for a cookie, for, you know, whatever. And recovery is giving up one thing for everything. Such a difference. I remember the first time that I really understood what that meant, just on my own Bright Line eating journey, and realizing, you know, how much of my life I had lived, just like the vacation example that I gave you on the slide before this, but just how much of my life I had lived for food, you know, and oh, you can't have a birthday without the cake. It's not going to be as good. But I've had many birthdays without cake, and it's even better because I'm just thinking about, I can go for a hike on my birthday. That's something I love to do. I can just enjoy time with my family. Anyway, and by giving up that one thing, the sugar, maybe it's two things, the sugar, the flour, whatever, I can live life and literally enjoy everything. I can enjoy wearing size 4 clothes, extra small, and know that my entire closet is full of it. And now my problem is decluttering my closet, right? But I don't have to wonder, is that outfit gonna fit me? I don't have to like feel, embarrassed when I'm putting on a swimsuit or whatever it is. And not just that, I can go to a family dinner and actually sit and talk to my family members and not be so thinking about, what other food I can try or what food I'm missing out on. I just don't think about that anymore. So this question here, what is surrender? Surrender is the ability to live your life to the fullest. I promise you that when you can give up those foods or behaviors that are holding you back, you will live an amazing life. It's so worth it. I'm trying to switch the guy. Oh, and then it says, stop fighting. I guess I needed to look at that before I completely switched it. So stop trying to do it your way. Stop trying to fight this addiction. I'll get into more of what I mean by that. But if you really want to live life to the fullest, stop fighting it. Stop trying to do right lane eating, and making exceptions here and there, because that's holding you back. All right, so here's these two fun pictures here. The first one is, so like I said here, the difference between these two pictures, a mask, right? No mask there. A hat, a silly little elf hat. I do have a 45-pound difference between this, and there is complete surrender between these two pictures. So these were taken exactly 1 year apart. I think the date was December 14th. Not that that date's significant, not that that matters, but that's just what I remember. December 14th, 2020 to December 14th, 2021. And the reason why I took this picture on this day, a year later, was because I was completely different this day than I was this day. So December 14th, 2020 was sort of my last, like my final, breaking point, I guess, or my, when I finally got down to, what do you call it, you guys? My brain isn't helping me remember, but when you're just at, my rock bottom, as far as being in the ditch. So let me just tell a little bit of what happened to me. So like I said, it took me 18 months to lose 145 pounds, pretty much, most of my weight. And then I started maintenance. I did not do maintenance very carefully, meaning I didn't really have somebody guiding me through it. And I would definitely recommend that you do find somebody to guide you. If you have listened to any of the other breakout sessions, or you attended some of the breakout sessions from the conference, I would definitely recommend that you listen to Shauna Murph's, because she teaches how to land the maintenance plane. I did not carefully land my maintenance plane the first time around. I just didn't really know what I was doing. And quite frankly, I was probably kind of cocky, because I'd lost my weight pretty easily. That maintenance wouldn't be so bad. But what had happened to me was, during my initial weight loss journey, I kept my lines bright, or so I thought. I did most things. I weighed and measured my food. I wrote my food down. I didn't eat any sugar, any flour. I did the quantities. I didn't eat in between meals. But there was one thing that I was doing that was really a dumb thing to do and held me back and led me to a very big fall in the ditch. And I'm just going to tell you specifically what I did, because again, this is my story, but I feel like it's something that a lot of you can perhaps relate to. What I did was, so before Bright Lane Eating, I suffered from migraine headaches, and I found that the one thing that killed them for me was caffeine, and particularly the caffeine found in diet, not my drink. And that was really the only time that I ever drank those kind of things. I wasn't a big soda drinker in my life, but I did get headaches often, and that would kind of kill it. And it would kill it. And so only about 2 or 3 weeks into my Brightline eating journey, because I wrote it in my 5-year journal, so I know how soon it was. Anyway, that far into my Brightline eating journey, I got a migraine, and I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? And I did come onto the online communities, asked in different Facebook groups, what should I do? A couple people had suggested to me that maybe I should drink coffee. And I don't drink coffee for religious reasons. And so I decided to drink a diet, not my drink. And it killed the headache. But you know what it did, you guys? It woke my brain up. And my brain realized, oh, you're going to take sugar and flour away, but you're going to put something else there. And it was both caffeine and the artificial sweeteners that kind of kept an addiction alive for me during my whole weight loss journey. And the diet, not my drink problem, started with really just medicinal, honestly. And I was only having it when I had a headache. And I did get headaches often. But eventually it got to the point where I just would justify it. And I would still say that I kept my lines bright. And truly, that was not keeping my lines bright. That was breaking a line. But it got to the point where my family, we were like on a family vacation and everybody was having snacks and treats, and I felt left out. And so I would have the diet, not my drink. It would be like my treat kind of thing. And it eventually got to the point where I would go get a drink every day, at least once, sometimes often more than once. And I think it was to the point where I had 144 ounce of those beverages at least 2 times per day. And it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning, the last thing I thought about when I went to bed at night. And every night I would regret that I'd had it, and I'd say, I'm not going to do it in the morning. And then I'd wake up and think, nope, where's my drink? You know how addiction is so horrible. But like I said, I wasn't up to like 244 ounces a day probably during my weight loss journey, but I was drinking it often. And when I did get to maintenance, I had that in my system and in my brain, and my brain started to play tricks on me and, rationalize. My rationalizer was very active and would tell me things like, if you're going to go through a drive-through and get a drink, you might as well get some French fries too. So I'm talking about specific things here just because I don't want to beat around the bush, and I want you guys to really understand, because maybe you can relate. So anyway, because my rationalizer said, French fries are a grain, right? And you're on maintenance, so you can have a grain. I will tell you right now, people, don't do this. You will just find yourself in trouble. But so, as I'm going through the drive-through, I started to do those couple things, and had this addiction to French fries as well. And this just led to me just really not being honest with my lines and finding ways to break my lines, but to see if I could somehow justify it or fit it in to say that I was keeping my lines bright when I really wasn't. And before I knew it, the weight was starting to creep back up. And I just knew that I wasn't really having a strong program. And this was like for probably a big chunk of 2019 and then 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020 when the world shut down, and people handled that differently. I did not handle it well. It kind of freaked me out, and I got a little scared and everything, and I got depressed. And probably depressed me because I wasn't eating completely bright. I don't know. Because sometimes it got to the point where I would justify the French fries and say, well, they're a carbohydrate and so is a fruit, so I'll have that instead of fruit. Do you see what's going on here? Not a good thing. Anyway, well, when everything shut down in March of 2020, like right before then, I went and did the big shopping like everybody did, and my mother-in-law happened to be helping me, and this was when school was still in. This was like the last day before they shut everything down. And we came home, and my mother-in-law suggested that I hide this food, which was not my food, but she said that I should hide it under my bed so that my kids wouldn't just come home and try to inhale it right away. my mother-in-law, love her to death, she did not understand what she was telling me to do, right? That's like telling an alcoholic, go put all this alcohol under your bed, and you're really depressed and scared, and just, you know, put that really close to you, right? That's what happened. And also I do want to back up before that, some of the other behaviors that I was doing, just to let you know. I even, like, very beginning of my weight loss journey, would still bring NMF into my home, clearly, because I told you I just did in that one situation, but I would bring it into my home often. I would go shopping and think, oh, my kids would love this, and so I'd bring it for them. And they would ask me, like, why are you doing this, Mom? If you don't want it, why do you want us to have it? And it took me a while to recognize I was doing it because it was still a way for my brain to hold on to that addiction. Like, if I can't have it, somebody should. I was feeding them poison. Anyway, it's taken me a long time to get past that behavior. But what would happen is, though, I would bring it into my home and I would look at it, right? And then I would hold it in my hand and fondle it and sniff it and think about it. And eventually, duh, you guys, that is going to lead to a break. So with the artificial sweetener from the Not My Drink in my system, and the very slippery lines, the blurry lines that I had created for myself, and then me fantasizing about not my food and allowing myself to hold it and, you know, do all these things, it was only inevitable that I was going to have a fall and break my lines. And, you know, I tried on, like, kind of compliant foods, but eventually I was all in and binging on candy a lot. So one day my dog had gotten under my bed where all that Not My Food was hidden and tore open a bag of candy, and I picked up the bag and, you know, handled it again to, like, put it away in his big Ziploc, and oh boy, it was a bad idea because sniffed it, did everything, and then binged and felt sick and felt like terrible and wondered, what on earth am I doing? And I did connect with people and try to talk about it, but I wasn't ready really to understand what was going on. And anyway, I kept doing that. Like 2 weeks later, I did it again, and it was like every 2 weeks for a little bit, and then eventually led to every day. And it was a rare day when I was bright. And in fact, it got to the point that if I was bright, I was actually surprised at myself that I was bright, and in some cases disappointed because I wanted an excuse to eat crappy things. So back to these pictures here. I'm going to tell you what happened. So all of that binging behavior led to me gaining back 40 pounds of the 40 that I had, or 145 that I had lost. I had gained back 40 pounds. And not just that, though, you guys. Like, I felt sick all the time. I was depressed. Obviously, like, disappointed in myself, but I was also, like, seriously depressed, like, super sad. And I couldn't sleep. I would have night sweats, all the things. Just lots of weird things were happening to me. And so this day, on December 14th, 2021, so the night before that, December 13th, this is when I was subbing in an elementary school in a first grade class and just having really a lot of fun there. This was right before the Christmas break. Anyway, the night before that, I had binged on sugar and I felt really sick, and I couldn't sleep. And so I got up in the middle of the night. This was very common for me after binging. I would wake up in the middle of the night, go out into the main area of my home, and, you know, try to, like, just let the sickness kind of pass. And I was about to do that, but I felt so terrible that I went into the bathroom first. And there in the bathroom, I fainted on the bathroom floor. My husband heard what was going on and was able to catch me, so I didn't hit my head or anything. But I remember laying down on the floor and him saying to me, "You are sweating everywhere. What is the matter?" I went to the doctor. There was nothing, you know, they did a bunch of blood tests, didn't really find anything wrong, but they did discover, or they didn't, sorry. what I really believe was that it was a sugar overdose. And that was really what was like, okay, I've got to stop this binging. I've got to stop this sugar problem. I just need to surrender. I cannot have this in my life anymore. And this was really when I was ready to change. And I took this picture a year later because, like I mentioned on the previous slide, I did completely resume and started the surrender process completely on, about 2 weeks after this, on January 1st, 2021. And I really seriously, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Oh well, it wouldn't let me go back. But and I haven't looked back. And yeah, and then I lost that 40 pounds again, plus another 5 pounds. So I put this picture here to ask you guys, this is really what I was feeling like along that whole journey that I shared with you. Even before Bright Lane Eating, like, why can't I just do this my way? I feel like that's something that maybe scares people about Bright Lane Eating because they don't want to give up the sugar and the flour. They think that is way too restrictive. And so we want to keep that with us. But really, you guys, that's just like a big baby part of us. I don't know what that part would be called. But there our toddler part, something that really just wants it our way. And for me, it was like, why can't I still eat the chocolate and the French fries and the diet, not my drink? Because it's not really like, why can't I? Well, hello, how's that working for you to do it your way? To bring whatever kind of foods you think maybe aren't hurting you, but maybe they are, right? Maybe they really are messing with your freedom. And maybe for a while you can see that they still work for you, that they don't mess with your weight, but perhaps they're messing with your peace of mind. So it isn't working for you. It wasn't working for me to do it my way. So this is one of the really pivotal things that changed me that I heard. I don't remember when this was, but I was listening to this podcast. The name of the podcast is the Life Coach School podcast by Brooke Castillo. She's a life coach. She does this amazing podcast. She's said quite a few things that are in compliance with Bright Lane Eating. Not all of her podcast episodes have to do with food or eating or anything, or even addiction, but she is somebody who has also struggled with alcoholism. So she talks about that, and it's just really relatable in a lot of ways. I listened to this one podcast by her very early on in my Bright Lane Eating journey, and it's kind of what made me really interested in following Brooke Castillo. And it was her podcast episode then was called Normal Eating. And it's, just really talks about like how eating sugar and flour is basically, like the same. People used to think that it was normal to smoke, in public settings and social settings. And now that is not normal. And, sugar and flour should be the same way. We shouldn't think it's normal, and hopefully it won't always be. So that was my first episode in her podcast that kind of got me listening to her. She's also done one about the urge jar, which I think Kathleen Braden touched on in her breakout. So if you want to listen to Kathleen's breakout, but and the urge jar has been really helpful for me as well. But I want to talk about this episode, which I've linked here. Oh, sorry, I almost fell down. So this one is this episode is called Butterfly Walking. And Brooke talks about how she was out on a walk one day and she saw a beautiful butterfly on the ground walking. It wasn't flying like butterflies do. It was walking, and it kind of like awkwardly walking, like it couldn't really walk. And Brooke thought it was so interesting that this butterfly was walking, and she thought, that is so silly, you crazy caterpillar. You don't know that you are now a butterfly. You don't know that you have changed. And then she does this whole, episode about how many times we do that. When we have changed, we have to change, you guys. Like, do we really, really change? Do we change our behaviors and things in order, to be this better person, this better version of ourselves? Or do we keep holding on to these parts of ourselves that really shouldn't be what we do? So Here, I'll flip to the next slide because it's kind of a part of this. So it says, if you want to change, you have to change. That's what Brooke Castillo said in her podcast. Like, if you want to change who you are, you have to change your behaviors. When I was listening to that podcast episode the first time, I was in my car driving to a drive-through to do what I was always doing, right? And I realized, oh my gosh, if I really want to change, if I really want to be free of this, addiction that I have, if I really want to make sure that I'm going to live in this right-sized body for the rest of my life, I probably should change this behavior that I'm doing, which is going through drive-thrus often. And so I'm going to ask you guys, what are you willing to change? What are you doing that is holding you back? As I have sponsored and guided people on their bright line eating journeys, I will find that a lot of people have a story similar to mine, where maybe they did pretty okay with their initial weight loss journey. And then there'll be a point where they'll realize however they were doing it that way isn't really working for them. And because they'll start, to binge or whatever, and they're falling in the ditch. And a very common thing that people say is, well, I know what to do. I've done it before. To which I say, maybe you have to do it differently this time. Maybe there was something that you were doing that you shouldn't have been doing that was holding you back, but you didn't know until now, right? So for me, I was able to still go through drive-thrus and have that not my drink for a good while until it caught up to me and I couldn't do that anymore. And that was the thing that I had to change in order to really change. So do you want to get off the diet roller coaster? Here's the thing I'm going to tell you first about myself. I love roller coasters. I would be happy probably to go on a roller coaster every day. I do. I love amusement parks. But I will say the roller coaster of life is not so fun. And diet roller coasters definitely are not fun. It is not fun to completely, be really strict about what you eat and then go off for a while and gain a bunch of weight back and then try to do it all over again. You guys, it is so much easier, really, to just surrender, to just say, you know what? I just don't eat that anymore, ever. It really is easier to not live in the roller coaster life. So the answer is simple. If you want to get off the diet roller coaster, surrender. All right. Stop trying to do it your way. Let's do it SPT's way, Susan Pierce Thompson's way. She knows what she's talking about. The woman is a genius. And she knows it because she's lived it. Truly. And there's little things in her book that she'll talk about that sometimes we're like, oh, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that, right? And I will get to some of those examples a little bit more. I promise this isn't that much longer. I know I've been talking for a while. But one of my favorite examples that I like to talk about, like I said, for me, it was the Diet Coke. For some people, it's gum. That's a huge one, chewing gum. And Susan advises us not to chew it. And we might think it's not a big deal, but I do think that there's a reason she says it, because it could throw us off. I was noticing I wanted to put like 3, 4, 5 pieces of gum in my mouth. Just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So maybe we should listen to what she says and do it her way. All right. So are you ready? I am going to give you 5 steps to complete surrender and peace. All right. So step number 1, dig down deep and find your why. This is a big one, and it might even be the hardest one. If you listen to the keynote, our dear, wonderful Erin Hart, she talked about that, how to find your why. She has some good questions there. And also, Deborah Moss is a person who was supposed to present at the conference, but had some travel difficulties. But her podcast, her PowerPoint, like mine, is being uploaded onto the Google Doc as well. So her whole thing was about finding your why. She's written a book about it, literally. And so she has some good questions and even a worksheet you can do to find your why. But also I just want to say that just yesterday, my dear friend Shauna Murph asked my Gideon Games group, she said, "What do you want?" That's a deep question. And as we all answered that question, that led all of us to help us find our why. So I want to ask yourself, what do you want? And right now, as you're thinking of that question, it could be, I want to eat blankety blank. That, maybe is not Brightline compliant. Maybe that is what you want in this moment. But deeper than that, like, what do you really, really want? What is the deepest desire of your heart? For me, and this is a religious and spiritual thing, but I'm just going to share it. I honestly want to live the life that my God, my Father in heaven, my Savior, wants for me. I want to be like him, and I want to live with him again. And I want him to be pleased with the life that I'm living. And I feel like a big part of that is taking care of my body. And my why with Brightline Eating has always been to have a brain that is free of addiction, because I don't want to be held back anymore. My spirit, I felt like, was trapped in my body. My brain has never been free until the last 4 years now with Brightline Eating. So I want you to think about this. What brought you here to Brightline Eating in the first place? Why are you doing Brightline Eating? Why aren't you doing Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or some other diet? What is it? Really dig deep and find your why. And as things get hard, remind yourself of your why, and you will keep going. So number 2, this one is one of my favorites actually, and this was a game changer for me. Create bright lines, also known as boundaries, around certain behaviors that are not serving you. So we do have the 4 bright lines with Brightline Eating: no sugar, no flour, no snacking, and weighing and measuring our food, watching our quantities, right? Well, if you find that there are other behaviors that you have done that are making it so that you can't even keep these 4 bright lines, perhaps you need to create other bright lines for yourself. So what I had to do, you guys, was give myself a bright line around drive-thrus. I do not go through drive-thrus by myself ever. That is a bright line that I will not cross. I just don't. And I have not done that since December of 2020. And that is why I haven't had that drink or French fries since December of 2020, because I quit going through drive-thrus alone. I found that by keeping that one line bright, I don't break the other lines. Another thing that I had to do even further than that is to have a very solid bright line around those particular foods that are not Brightline compliant anyway. But I really had to tell myself there is no way I'm eating those foods. And that was the diet, not my drink, and French fries and candy. I just don't eat them. And like I said, they don't even come into my house anymore. But another bright line was I don't smell food. I just don't. That because it starts with a thought. And then the other line that I created for myself was that I commit my food to a sponsor every night, which will lead me to my next point. But I do find, and most of the time I will prepare my food ahead of time. I do find that if I do these things, I will not break the bright lines. So number 3, reach out for support. That's what I was saying. So I found a sponsor that held my hand and helped me, and I reached out and I said, I will do whatever it takes. I'm ready. And what my sponsor required of me was to not only commit my food every day, but to prepare it and take a picture of it and show her that it's ready. And when I did that, like, I wouldn't break my lines. I took all the time to prepare it. Then like I was kind of excited about eating it the next day, and it just has kept me bright. You have to find somebody who's 2 steps ahead of us in our journey, and somebody who will hold us accountable, who will be loving to us, but firm. And there are plenty of people out there that can fulfill this need, but I do think it's so important to have a guide. And also other people. Reach out and have friends on this journey with you. Be in a mastermind group with people, in a Gideon Games group. If you're part of the official membership, call into accountability calls and things like that. Talk with the coaches. But reach out. You cannot do this on your own. The opposite of addiction is connection, and we need connection. Okay, number 4, do the small things. These are things that so many people just don't want to do. We want to rebel on this one, and we don't think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal. There's something about putting pen to paper and a connection that happens in our brains. But do them, you guys. Journal, meditate, like I did at the beginning, sort of this little PowerPoint here. It just centers me and helps me to stay focused. Journaling is actually quite fun. I love writing in my 5-year journal. It's been really fun now to notice that for the first several years of my journey, I was always writing about, I wish I could give up that not my drink. And now I'm like, oh, look, I did it. And the food prep, that is huge. Food prep will save you from breaking your lines. It really will. And if you're not willing to do those little things, I would get curious and ask yourself why. Because this really will make a big difference for you in your journey. And the last one kind of goes along with the food prep point. To use your free frontal cortex, this part of your brain. This is the decision-making part of our brain. And did you know that when you struggle with addiction, that this part of your brain actually shrinks? So you just don't have the ability to make the decisions like you had before, because the back of your brain, the primitive brain, is the one that's running the show, that's in charge. And that's the one that's just acting on impulse all the time, like an animal. We're better than animals, right? But as you do work addiction and find recovery, something called neuroplasticity happens in your brain, and that part of your brain can grow again. But this is why it's important to write your food down and stay committed to that. Because you're using that part of your brain that is good at making decisions before and not letting that back part of your brain be in charge. For a long time in my Bright Lane eating journey, I'm a very obedient person, and so I wrote my food down. But a lot of times I didn't stick to it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal if I had carrots instead of spinach or whatever. And it wasn't, right? Probably, maybe nutritionally one was better, but really it didn't matter. I still could keep, lose weight and things. But what happened was the primitive part of my brain was alive and active and running the show. And so then when it came to the part where life got hard, I was just so easy to let myself eat what I wanted in the moment that then it came down to, you know what? I don't want a salad right now. I want this NMF instead. And I just wasn't keeping my lines anymore. And so that was one of the biggest things that has made a difference in my Rezoom, is to make sure that I stick to my committed food no matter what. I do not change my committed food plan. I can't say I never do, because there have been very, very minor, very few instances where I have, but when I have connected with my sponsor and told her that I'm changing my plan, and I've told her why. And it really kind of has to be for a big reason. Even if dinner's super late, I'm still going to eat it. One time I had a sweet friend in my neighborhood bring me a salad that she had got from a restaurant, and she just was being nice, and it was a compliant salad. It was totally fine. But you know what I did? I put it in my fridge and I ate it the next day, because it was not what I had committed that day. I don't want my primitive brain running the show. I want to run the show. So one of my favorites, mantras that I tell myself is no excuses, no matter what. No excuses. It doesn't matter, that it's been a crazy day. It doesn't matter that I'm on a vacation. It doesn't matter that it's some kind of celebration. It doesn't matter, lots of things. It doesn't matter. And this is really, if you do not change your food plan, you will have automaticity. You won't be relying on willpower. And bright line eating will no longer be hard. It will just be what you do, really and truly. And you will have completely surrendered. You will be able to live, a life where you're wearing a whatever your clothing size is, it will be that. And you won't be worried about gaining the weight, honestly. Like it just will not be hard. So just my last thoughts. And I know that Kathleen, I think, talked way more about this in her Rezoom breakout, but you need to feel your feelings. You just have to. Don't stuff them down. Food doesn't solve the problem. So if you're feeling sad, feel sad. If you're feeling tired, feel tired. If you're feeling angry, deal with that. Feel angry. This is another reason why we break our lines, is because we don't want to feel those feelings. Also get professional help if you need it. I actually did that, and it helped me, keep my lines bright, because I wasn't battling that depression anymore. So sometimes your brain might need that little oomph. So I'm saying just take care of yourself, which I could do a whole other presentation on. So yeah, I'll just end that there. And then these are some links to some of my favorite bright line eating vlogs, and I could add more. I think one of those is one that Susan recently did. I wish I would have put the titles in there, so I just have to click on them. But I think one of those is one that Susan recently did called Divorcing Potato Chips, which was a really good one. And I would just apply that to any foods that are holding you back. Popcorn is another one that I just think maybe people should think about divorcing. Yeah, it goes right along with what I've talked about today. I think one of those other ones is the intermittent reinforcement vlog. That's a really good one, about what happens when we're trying to resume and what's happening in our brain and why it's so hard. And then I think the last one here might be one that she just did about relapse prevention. She's done some really good vlogs recently about this kind of thing. She even did one, and that might be the one, about complete surrender. Susan, if you watch her, she's got a lot about her surrender story. Okay, so I guess you're not going to ask me questions right here because you're not with me live, but I will just say that when I did this presentation at the conference, the reason why that one's not here is because it didn't record. And actually, this is my third time trying to record this, so hopefully it works this time. But anyway, I did have there were a couple questions asked, but one that I would love to just talk about is one of the attendees, who happens to be a good friend of mine. She asked, how do you do this when your family keeps telling you that you shouldn't be doing it? They'll tell you that it's too restrictive or that it's bad for you. Family tries to sabotage you, things like that. And my response to her was, do you think it's restrictive? Do you think you shouldn't be doing it? If you don't believe that this is right for you, or that you want to do bright line eating, nobody else will believe it either. It comes from you first. So I just want to say that. And also, one of the biggest things that helped me get ready for surrender, because it does start in your brain first. You have to get your brain there and your heart there, before you're willing, right? So the surrender thing is a whole process, and it's not a one-time thing, by the way, either. But when I was binging and just really struggling, I remember when I asked you a few slides ago, what is your why and what do you want? And I said, some of you might be saying right now, I want to eat, whatever food. Well, something that I used to say to myself before I fully surrendered was, I want recovery more than I want the food. And you know what? When I first started saying that, I didn't actually believe it. And I was binging, and I was still, eating off plan and everything while I would say that to myself. But I knew that if I kept saying that eventually I would believe it. And guess what I did? I did. So start with your thoughts. Start with your desire. Start telling yourself that you really want recovery and surrender, and eventually you will have that. And I think that might have been everything that I wanted to bring up. So anyway, thank you everybody, and this has been really fun talking with you. Have a wonderful day.